I just asked if I had any objections to recording, but I was on mute. So seeing as though none of you said yes, I'm just going to go. I'm kidding. Do I have any objections to recording? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Cool. Okay. Right. Let's go then. Okay. So guys, this is a summary lecture. So I'm going to try not to have to go through concepts like right from the beginning again. It's just a reminder of what we've gone through already. I am going to ask you guys to let people in because I'm going to go into slideshow mode. So if you can let people in, that would help me a lot. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Janine. I lecture the Wits Plus. I lecture the Wits Plus students. And I lectured this course last year as well. Okay. How I work is that if you do have a question, you need to just shout at me because I can't see your hands if they go up because I'm in screen mode. So please just shout at me. But also remember that we're going through 6 weeks worth of work in one day. So the idea I would imagine would be to not have too many questions and rather keep your questions to the end. While the lectures have been good for discussion and political discourse and all of that, and those have been fun and interesting, today is really just about us going through the theory, making sure we understand the theory, not the exciting stuff around it. How funny, I said theory, and the word theory came up on my screen. That wasn't planned. Okay. Right. Okay. So, but you are welcome to ask questions if you really don't understand a concept. Okay, so the exam, I've just looked at it again. It's really not hard. If you understand the concepts that we've gone through, it's really not hard. What I would encourage you to do is to understand the concepts, read through the concepts. I have put study guides into Ulwazi, both for the Wits Plus guys and for the full-time guys. I just want to pause this somehow. Where's my pause button? Why don't I pause? My pause button is gone. I just wanted to pause. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there for a second because it's annoying me. I have put study guides into the into Ulwazi. As the study guides are like literally what I've done is I pretended for a second that I was a UNISA lecturer and I wrote you very simple study guides. I used to be a high school teacher, so I've like literally gone and high schooled the content. Do not use the study guides as your study material, as your comprehensive study material. The study guides are there so that you can understand the concept. And then if you understand the concept, you can go and read through the slides and make the slides make sense to you. And then you can go read supplementary material so that you can go and make sense. Okay. The study guides are literally there for you to make sure that you understand the concepts. Okay. Because in third year, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we understand the concept and then we can apply the concept. Okay. So please don't use the study guides as your comprehensive study material. They are simply there for you to make sure that you understand the concept. That is all. Make sure that you still read through the slides, that you understand the slides, and all of that. Okay, right. In saying that, the exam is made up. I don't know how much Mars told you guys. But for my classes as well, the exam is made up of 5 questions. It's 4 like sort of short short questions and then one longish essay question, but they all are really essay questions, okay? There is one question where you may need to draw a picture. That's all I'm saying. So if we happen to look at pictures today or diagrams, it might be good for you to know how to draw those pictures and know what's on those pictures. That's all I'm saying. If you took the time to be here today, then that may or may not be a clue. Okay. So that's what the exam is made up of. It's 2 hours long, and it is next week, Tuesday. Okay, so we all know that. Are there any questions about that so far? The one question I keep getting is, can we choose? No, it is not multiple choice, and you can't choose which questions you will answer. You have to answer all 5 questions. Okay. Are there any questions about anything I've said so far? Awesome. Yes. Dolly. You're on mute, Dolly. Inati, your hands up.
I wanted to ask the short
One of you at a
questions.
time. Okay, hang on. One of you at a time. So Dolly, go first. Okay,
Oh,
so
hello. Good
okay, Dolly, go
evening.
first.
I just wanted to ask, like regarding drawing a picture. Do you mean like drawing a mind map or one of the diagrams that are there?
Well, I mean, it's not an art class, right? So yes. I mean, we'll go. So you will see the picture that you're going to have to draw today. Okay, Inati.
With the short questions, so you said they were like a paragraph form.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay,
like the
thank you.
shortest question is out of like 10 marks. And so remember, like if I'm going to give you 10 marks, I'm gonna need at least 5 to 10 points in order to be able to give you 10 marks. I'm going to need at least 10 points to be able to give you 10 marks. Okay, so I want to give you a mark or point. Remember, this is like it's not any different to high school. I'm going to need 10 marks to give you 10 marks for. Okay. 271-838. I don't know who that person is. The person is there. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to ask. You said that we should use the study material as just a guide for understanding. So if a question comes up and you use the content that you got from the study guide to answer, will that be discarded?
No. All I'm saying is, so like I said to my class last week, I put those study guides together in 3 days, and I'm not gonna make any qualms about this. I like use ChatGPT to help me. So it's not comprehensive. It's really just, I was like, my prompt was, please help me to create a very simple study guide on sources of power. Like that. So what I'm saying is use it, understand it, use it absolutely, you can use it in your exam as a study guide. That's why I put it together. I have reread it. I have checked it. Everything in there is right. There's nothing wrong in it. So I haven't ChatGPT'd it and they just left it. The material in there is correct, and I have edited it and fixed it, but I used AI to help me put it together. So it's not like I haven't gone and researched, like guessed, and like I haven't done any like massive research to put that stuff together. So if you want to get 60, you can use the study guides. If you want to use 80, use the slides and the other research material that's also available to you, and read the news. Read the news.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Read the news. Okay. Right. Last question. Yeah, Inati.
I wanted to ask how many marks is the exam?
100.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so I just gave you a hint there. Read the news. Make sure that you know what kinds of like updates and changes, etc., have happened in the labor law and in the employment relations environment within the last 2 years. So make sure that you're up to date. So like there's been some changes now with maternity and paternity law. There's been some changes with minimum wage. Like, make sure you know all of that stuff. Those are 2 hints. Like, those are literally 2 basic examples. But make sure that you know that there's that you know the changes. There's also been some changes to the rules with regards to disciplinaries. Just make sure that you're aware of some changes and know enough about them that you'd be able to talk with a little bit of intelligence about that. Okay. Right. So those are the last kinds of hints I'm giving you for now. We're now going into the paper, into the theory. Okay. Right. Okay. So the first theory we're going to talk about is justice. And I wanted to remind you that there are 4 types of justice. Okay. Distributive justice really talks about how something, whether it is selection, whether it is money, whether it is leadership, whether it is promotions, etc., how that thing is distributed. Okay. So how it is given out. And there are different ways in which something can be given out. It can either be given out according to equity or equality or according to need. Okay? So equity says that I need to give something out according to what is just. Equity talks about justice. Okay? And it's interesting because I'm talking about justice. So maybe I'm going to use the word fairness here rather. So equity talks about almost like fairness. So what do I need to make sure that everybody has, so that everybody has like a fair shake at getting to the answer? And I'm sure you've all seen that meme of the guys trying to watch the cricket game or the baseball game, and everybody's got one box to stand on, and but there's one tall guy, so he's standing on a box and he can see right over the fence. There's another guy, he's standing on a box and he can just see over the fence. And then there's a short little dude and he's standing on a box, but he still can't see over the fence. So what is equity? Equity would be to give the short guy the tall guy's box, because then everybody would still be able to see over the fence. That's equity. It's not equality. Equality is giving everybody one box. Equity is when we give everybody what it is to make it fair. Okay. And then there is giving everybody what they need, which is slightly different to equity, because equity is about giving everybody a fair shake and addressing issues of the past. Equity is saying we're going to give everybody what they need. So that's like asking, do you even need to be at the baseball game in the first place? Like, what do we need? So that's really distributing according to need is really the basis of communism. So that was Marx's theory, where he said, sorry, that is not what Karl Marx said. Karl Marx was not a dog. He didn't even look like one. So sorry about that. So what Karl Marx said was, we give each instead of each according to their ability, we give each according to their need. Whereas capitalism is the opposite. Capitalism says we give each according to their ability, not according to their need. Okay, so that's distributive justice. So distributive justice is, how do we distribute the stuff, whatever the stuff is? How do we distribute it? Procedural justice talks about the actual procedure of how we've gone about deciding how we give it out. Okay? So procedural justice talks about, how do we actually decide the procedure? How do we actually go about deciding? Okay? And then we need to know, like, so the tenets of procedural justice is that procedure accurate? Is it consistent? Okay, so are we actually consistent along the lines of, so do we treat everybody the same? Okay, is it ethical? So have we actually been ethical? Have we applied the right ethical standards to this, or have we been unethical, racist, gender biased, homophobic, Islamophobic, whatever, in giving out these things, widgets, whatever they are, in dealing out the widgets? Okay, is it correctable? So if there is a mistake with it, can we correct the procedure? is it representative? So when we decide the procedure, are there enough people represented in helping us decide that procedure to make sure that we've actually thought about everything? And does the procedure help us suppress bias? Okay. And that helping us suppress bias, that's that whole thing that you hear is surely it's about getting the right person for the job. Like, surely I shouldn't just employ the first black guy, so surely I should employ the right person for the job. Okay, so does your procedure make sure that we're suppressing those biases that people have? Okay. Does everyone understand so far? Can I get thumbs up or thumbs down if there's, I don't know if there's a thumbs down button, but any questions so far? Will be good. Okay, I'm getting 1 or 2 thumbs up, so I'm assuming I can keep going. Shout at me if I've said something that doesn't make sense. Okay. Then interpersonal justice. This is the justice about two-way communication. Okay, so this is the justice about how have we communicated the message, whatever the message is, and has that been fair? So now it's about saying, like, I'll get to you in a second, Keisha, I see your face, I see your hand. So interpersonal justice is, has the way I have communicated whatever this decision was, okay? So I spoke about it, okay, or we decided what we were going to give out. So we had 10,000 widgets. This is how we decided that we were going to give them, well, this is how we gave them out, okay? We did it according to equity, equality, and need. This is how we decided the procedure, so the procedure was fair. But then how we told people, how the way in which we gave it out, the two-way communication wasn't done with respect and dignity. So therefore, the justice on the interpersonal front wasn't fair. Keisha? You're on mute, Keisha.
Hi.
How's it? Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Quick question. Are these slides separate slides that you're reading from, or are they available?
No, these are on, I have added 1 or 2. These are on Ulwazi. I've just made them put here.
Okay,
So,
makes sense. I think they look different.
yeah,
Fine.
they look slightly different. I just changed the colors, but they are on.
Okay.
I will upload these as well because I've added 1 or 2 other pictures and whatever, but they are
Okay.
on
Okay.
they
Yeah.
are on Ulwazi. Okay,
Thanks.
cool. No problem. Cool. Okay. So interpersonal justice talks about, so my mother always says it's not what you say but how you say it. And you'd think that would be a simple thing to explain to people. You'd think like people would get that, especially managers who are earning whatever, 2 million rand a year, $1 million a year. You'd think they'd understand that. They don't. Like, so you say to them, but I don't understand why that guy is not happy. Like, yes, like I gave him a 10% increase. Yeah, but how did you tell him that he was getting that 10% increase? What words did you use when you told him he was getting a 10% increase? So instead of it being something good, it turned out to be something bad because the way you told him was like, yeah, listen, we're not giving increases this year, but I'm going to give you a 10% increase anyway. Because, like, dude, that's like, call him in, have a nice conversation with him. Like, that's interpersonal justice. It's not just about being nice and being caring. It's about the fairness with which we communicate, the justice with which we communicate. Were you nice and kind to everybody, or did you treat everybody like a list? Okay, that's interpersonal justice. And then the last one is about informational justice. How much information do we give, at what point, and at what time? Okay, so we had a big argument about this in our class when we spoke about justice. Okay, so we can't always give everybody all the information at the same time. Because as soon as, let's say we're talking about retrenchments, let's say the widgets we're giving away are not good widgets. Let's say those widgets that we're giving away in this distributive piece here is the retrenchments. As soon as I say the R word, people are going to start jumping ship and freaking out and going crazy. And I might not even, I've got a client at the moment who phoned me to say, according to the law, if I'm thinking of retrenching in January because I might lose a client, do I have to start telling people now? I'm like, absolutely not. Because as soon as you say the R word, people are going to start jumping ship. And who's going to get jobs first? Your best employees. So we don't have to share information as soon as we know it. We can keep information to a certain group of people. That's why we have exec teams. That's why we sign NDAs. That's why we give certain things at certain times. But it is important that the information that people need in order to do their jobs, in order to feel clarity, in order to feel secure, that they have as much information as they need at the right time, as honestly as you can possibly give it. Okay. So I said, what you can say to them is, listen, this big client is looking at moving away, but these are the things I'm doing to try and make up that income. And so there may be some structural changes within the next 6 months, but this is what the structural changes will look like. So that they don't feel like you're hiding anything from them, but you're not saying the R word. Even if the R word does happen, don't talk about it now, talk about it then, because that we might not, he doesn't know yet if he's going to retrench. So bringing it up now is going to be silliness. Does that kind of make sense? Do we understand how we only have to give the right amount of information at the right time? Everyone happy? Okay, do we all understand these 4 types of justice? Distributive, procedural, interpersonal, informational, and how they can be used poorly or well in an organization. Halesa?
Thank you. If this were to be a question, and I don't know, I'm
Yeah.
asking this in relation to not just this section, but the rest of the essay questions. Will you be giving us a case study or a scenario, and then we have to type up an essay, or is it very straightforward questions? Yeah.
So remember, this is 3rd year. So you're not ever going to be asked, please give us the 4 types of justice and explain them. Okay. You're not going to be asked, what are the 7 sources of power? You might be asked, this happened. Can you explain how the 7 sources of power, how a person could use the sources of power in this theory? Or how would justice theory apply to this situation? That's more how the questions will be asked. Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Right. Any questions on justice before I move on? Okay. Then we're going to talk about conflict. Okay. So if you notice, there's no pictures here, even though in the theory that we did, there were pictures. That's all I'm saying. So when we're talking about conflict, remember that conflict is always about the antecedent conditions. So remember, we spoke about ante means before. When you go to antenatal lessons, you write an antenuptial contract, so a contract before you get married. In Italian, you have antipasta, which means the meal before your pasta. So the antecedent conditions are the conditions that happened before the conflict happened. So what are these conditions that I'm starting to pick up? Okay, so understand we finished justice now, we moved on to conflict. Everyone happy with that? I just wanted to make sure before I start talking. Okay. So the antecedent conditions to conflict is these are the conditions that start happening before conflict happens. Okay. So I start to feel aware, like, this guy's annoying me, like I can start to feel like something in my bones. And generally the people in this class are the ones that will feel this kind of thing. Okay, because these are the guys, you are the guys that the reason why you're doing psychology, the reason why you're doing industrial psych is because you probably got a lot of empathy, you probably got high IQs, high EQs, right? So you can kind of start to feel like there's something in your bones. Okay. So this is where we start to feel like something strange is happening here. Like you'll start to notice on your email, the person used to say, hi, Jay, all of a sudden they're like, hi, Janine. You're like, that's interesting. Okay. Other people might not even notice those things, but these are for perceptive people that will start understanding. Okay. The next thing that happens is we start to feel emotions about this. And at that point where once I start feeling emotions, that's when I start to say, okay, something's happening here. I need to start to use the formal and informal tools that are available to me. Okay, so there are certain formal and informal tools available to me, okay, that I have that that I can use, okay, that I can use to help me with handling this conflict. Okay, so somebody now actually done something to make me feel negative. Okay, they've now spoken badly about me in a meeting. They've reacted terribly. They've done this. They've done that. And now I'm starting to feel like this is I'm actually starting to feel negatively dealt with. And at that point, I can use both the formal and informal processes. So informal processes, I can go chat to the person. I can say, listen, here's an issue. Like, what are we going to do about this? I can send the person an email. Or I can use my formal processes, which are things like grievance procedures, which are things like going to HR, which are things like speaking to my manager is probably a little bit more informal, but I can actually report this to HR. I can go through a grievance procedure, etc. And if things are good, then I can stop it here. And then we end up in that place where we now can resolve the conflict. Okay. If the conflict doesn't get resolved there, then I get to a place where now actually we're diverging in our interest here. Okay. You still haven't fixed it. There's still problems here. And now we're going to get into bigger issues because now actually, and this could be when we're actually looking at parties. Okay, there's actually more like we're looking at multiple parties within this conflict. Okay, because now we're actually diverging in our interests. Now I'm actually going to start to behave differently to you. So now, before I was just being kind to you and I was just like being passive aggressive and I was still doing what you asked. But now we tried to fix it, we didn't fix it. Now I'm just not going to do what you want me to do. Okay. So now we're actually diverging and we're no longer moving towards the same goal. Okay. And that's when it can actually blow up into a physical conflict or a shouting match in the office, or if it is multiple parties, a strike action or something like that. And it's at that point where we now need to bring even more formal policies and practices in place, and we have to use our more formal processes to handle that conflict. Okay, so there's really 2 or 3 places where we can try and deal with it. Okay, so these antecedent conditions, I can start to feel it. Do I want to deal with it then? Probably not. Like I could say, is everything okay? I'm starting to feel like this itch. It's probably a little bit too early then, but I could deal with it then. I can deal with it here through formal and informal processes in emotions. Okay, by perceptions, if I can't deal with it, then it then moves into something more serious. And if I can't deal with it, then it moves into a big old blowout and either strike action if it's multiple parties, or a blowout in the office where we're screaming at each other, and it's just not good then. Okay. Remember again, conflict doesn't always have to be bad. Some conflict can be good. And it could just be that we actually have divergent ways of reaching the same goal. And it might not always be emotional. It might just be different ways of thinking. So it might be cognitive, and it might be ways of us coming together so that we can compromise and deal with those different issues. Okay. Any questions about the stages of conflict? Okay. Then if we go on to the causes of conflict, guys, these are pretty, we've gone through the causes of conflict a lot. I'm not going to go through these too much with you. You really, like, these are pretty common sense. Okay, there's a lack of a common objective. We've got different methods of pursuing an objective. So I want you to go through these, but this is pretty simple. Okay, we've got different information. You've got a piece of information. I've got a piece of information. We've got different value structures. We've got there's different ways of talking about the same thing. There's generational differences. So don't be blocked by just the causes of conflict that are in here. You can talk about other types of conflict as well. Okay, or other causes of conflict as well. These are some examples, but there certainly are many more than just the ones that are in here. Okay. And then some of the types of conflict. So there is real conflict, okay? Real conflict, which is actually real conflict, like I don't like you, you don't like me, there's something that you've done that's annoyed me, and we're going to have that. Then there's perceived or felt conflict, which may or may not be real, okay? But it's certainly like I'm starting to feel like there's an issue between us, and maybe that is real. Maybe that conflict is real. But maybe it's actually not. Like maybe I had a fight with my wife on the way to work, and then I got to work and I walked past you and I didn't greet you. And I'll never forget, I had a friend that didn't talk to me for about 3 months because I saw her at shopping center and I didn't greet her, but I didn't have glasses on. So I didn't see her at the shopping center. Like literally, I can't see anything if I don't wear my glasses. I mean, I can see you guys because you're close to me, but I can't see what's written on my fridge from where I am. And my fridge is like 3 meters away from me. So she didn't talk to me for a long time. So there was a perceived conflict, right? And eventually one day I was like, what are you talking about? Why? Like, is everything fine between us? I'm trying to take it. She's like, yo, you saw me at the Glen and you didn't say hello. I'm like, what? Okay, so that's perceived conflict. Okay, so sometimes perceived conflict. Then there's constructive versus destructive conflict. So constructive conflict builds us up. That's conflict that can be used to say, right, we've had this argument now. How can we use what we've learned in this conflict about each other, about the situation to make things better? Okay, so those are conflicts about the air conditioner, about the way we work, about the processes that we put together, about whatever, where we can say, okay, so, okay, I understand now. That's why you don't want me to do the process like that. Okay, I get it. Fine. Okay, cool. So if I just change this little bit about my process, will that help you on your side? Yes, that'll help us. Oh, okay, cool. I get it. Cool. That's constructive conflict. Destructive conflict is where we're not willing to listen to each other at all, and we just keep hitting against each other until everything breaks. Okay. Then there's frictional versus strategic conflict. So frictional conflict is where we cause the conflict ourselves and we start to fight with each other. That can either end up in constructive or destructive conflict. And then there's strategic conflict where I purposefully ensure that two people that are working for me become conflictual to each other, and I put them into an area where they will conflict so that I can get the best news out of them. So I will purposefully give my marketing guys less budget than they need. And I will purposely give my marketing guys an astronomical goal of what I want them to achieve. And then I will tell the finance guys that they're not allowed to give them any money, basically. I don't know if any of you work in marketing, but that happens a lot. Or I will tell the HR guys, this is what I want you to achieve in employee engagement. And then I'll tell finance, don't give them any money. And then I'll watch them fight. But what that does is it means that these guys start to get creative and find ways, and these guys all of a sudden find money in certain places, and we get strategic conflict like that because all of a sudden people start to find ways of doing things. Okay. And then there's task conflict versus relationship conflict. So what I just described now was task conflict, right? So I want to give everybody a new water bottle on Spring Day, and it's going to cost us 5,000 Rand because they're 50 Rand each. And this is what I need to do. And please, can you give me? And he's like, I don't have 5,000 Rand for you. You're not doing it. Yeah, but this is why I want to do it. And so the arguments we're having are about work. Okay, that's task conflict. Okay, I don't dislike the CFO. This is not about the CFO, and he doesn't dislike me as the HR exec. This is not about me and him. This is about HR and finance. That's task conflict. Relationship conflict is about when it's about the people themselves. So I don't like the way you speak to me. I don't like the things that you do. Sometimes task conflict becomes relationship conflict because sometimes the personalities intertwine. Because the way that you do your tasks is so intertwined into your personality that it becomes like, and we clash like that. So you are, I don't know if any of you have done the MBTI or have exposure to it, but you are so much a P, you're so unstructured, and I'm so rigidly structured. And that is so much part of our personality that we start to conflict. that feels like its personality. But actually, if I get down to the bones of it, it's actually about the task. It's not actually about the person. Lorata?
Sorry, Janine. I just want to ask about the strategic conflict.
Yeah.
So my understanding from what you're explaining is that intended for a strategic purpose. So like the
Yeah.
example that you're giving about marketing being given a an objective but not being given the financial backing they need so that they can become creative. Is that so it's intended so to try
Yeah.
and push people to a certain
Yeah.
okay.
Kind of. That's pretty much what it is. Yeah, so the company's kind of being strategic about creating a conflict here because we don't grow in our comfort zones, right? So if I create a little bit of tension, then people will be forced to get out of their comfort zones and find more creative ways to get stuff done. So that's kind of part of what strategic conflict is about. It also means we start to push each other. So strategic conflict is also why I would rather, if I was learning to run fast, I'd rather run against Usain Bolt than my brother. Because even though my brother's a little bit faster than me, Usain Bolt's much faster than me. So Usain Bolt that is a definite conflict, and he's going to push me to be faster because there's like a strategic conflict there. Like that conflict of me racing against Usain Bolt is going to push me to be faster. That's a strategic conflict. Races are a strategic conflict, not races like black and white, but races like races.
Cool.
Cool.
Thank you. Got it.
Okay. Okay. Everyone happy with conflict so far? Okay. These are the models of conflict. Understand them? Okay, we've kind of gone through this one already. There's Robinson's model of conflict. We've kind of gone through. So when I spoke in the beginning, this is kind of what I was going through. Understand it. Understand the concept of it. You don't have to learn it off by heart, but understand the concepts of it. Make sure that you understand the concepts of it. Make sure you understand how conflict works and how conflict can work in an organization, either good or bad. And what are some of the ways that we would use conflict in an organization? Okay, everybody still happy? Good, I'm moving on. Okay, employment relation system. Right. So a little while ago, I said, I never want to see this picture again. Well, there's this picture again. You do need to know this picture. You need to understand it. Okay, so you need to know this. This is not the picture you have to draw. But you have to know this picture. You have to understand it. But mainly you have to understand the three players within employment relations in South Africa. Okay, so you have to understand what is the state's role in employment relations. Okay, so the states obviously can act as an employer, a lawmaker, a conciliator, a regulator, but mainly the purpose of the state is also to regulate employment through the different types of legislation. Make sure that you know enough about the legislation so that if you refer to it, you're referring to the right legislation at the right time. So don't talk about in the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, this is how it tells you how to dismiss people, okay? Because the Basic Conditions of Employment Act doesn't talk about dismissal. The Labor Relations Act talks about dismissal, okay? So make sure you at least know which laws talk about which things. And you know the main ones, okay? So like, do you need to know, so you kind of like those are the main ones that you need to know, the basic conditions, the main ones that you need to know. Basic conditions, LRA. Those are the two main ones that you need to know. So if you don't want to do anything else and you only want to learn two laws, learn those two. You don't have to know them off by heart. No one's going to ask you in section 189 of the Labor Relations Act, what does it refer to? But you need to at least know what are the laws about. Okay, so if you're only going to learn two, learn the basic conditions of the labor relations. if you're going to learn a few more, learn the Employment Equity Act and the Skills Development Act, maybe. Or, yeah, okay, no. If you're going to learn 3, learn the Employment Equity Act. If you're going to learn more, learn all of them. Okay. So I'd say the 2 most important are the Basic Conditions and the Labour Relations Act. The 3rd most important, Employment Equity Act, and then the rest are there for you to make sure that people are safe and that the Constitution, obviously, you need to know what the Constitution is. Okay, so that's what the state's role is. Any questions about the state? Guys, I'm going through this super fast, but there should be nothing here that you haven't heard before. All right, cool. Right, then what's the role of the employer? Obviously, the role of the employer is to give a job, to make sure that to create employment, but it's also the role of the employer is to create employment in such a way that it is according to the law, that it is rewarding, that it provides for psychological and physical well-being, that we provide fair recruitment, fair processes, that we provide job security, that we provide safety in the workplace, etc., etc. Okay, so when you talk about employers, I want you to think about fair, healthy employers, that the employer's role is not just to employ people and give them money. Okay, it's not just an employer's job to say, we're not just talking about an actual contract. There are other types of contracts that we need to think about here. So the employer's job is to provide recruitment, growth, training, career development, staff rewards, psychological and physical well-being, job security. All of those things are part of the employer's responsibility in the psychological contract and in the employment contract. Okay, all of that is part of his responsibility. It's not just his job to provide a job and money. Okay, so that's part of the role of the employer. And then, okay, and this is all still part of the employer's responsibility. We've spoken about this, to provide fair labor relations, etc. Okay, then from the employee's responsibility is to provide work, but not only is it to provide work and productivity, the employee's responsibility is also then to provide loyalty, integrity, responsibility, and all of those things in return for the stuff that the employer has provided. So if the employer is only going to provide a salary, then the employee's only responsibility is to provide work. That's it. But if the employer is also going to provide job security, training, growth, physical and mental well-being, etc., then the employee also then has to provide loyalty, integrity, self-development, etc., because that's how we now start to have a psychological contract, which is bigger than just, I'll give you money, you give me work. That's what a legal contract says, but a psychological contract starts to give us more. Okay. Making sense so far? Okay. I just want to... So we're talking about the psychological contracts. I just want to talk a little bit about the psychological contract first. Okay, so I mean, I like this picture. I think it's a nice picture. I mean, so sometimes when I'm at home and like I'm bored, I practice drawing this picture and understanding all the different parts of it. That's all I'm saying. Okay. You can take that if you want. Put it in your pipe, smoke it, do whatever you want with it. All right. Yes, I'm not answering the question that you're going to ask, but ask the question. You ever put their hand up? I see you put your hand down because you knew you were going to ask the question. You're like, there's no way she's actually going to answer that question. Right. That's right. Good job. Okay. So let's talk about the psychological contract that I just started talking about. Okay. So if we understand those 3 components of the employment relationship. So there's the state, The state provides the laws, and the state provides an environment that's safe for people to work in, etc. And the state provides a political environment, so whether it's socialist or whatever the case is, employer provides job security, etc., and the employee provides work. What else is part of that relationship? Okay. So what else is part of that relationship? Well, there's this thing called the psychological contract. And this is the thing that I can't write down. This is the thing that I can't actually say to you. I can't actually make you sign a contract that says, I will give you job security if you give me loyalty. I will give you job security if you give me, or I will give you growth if you promise to grow. Like, I can't actually write that stuff down. I mean, I wish I could, but you can't. But this is more of like a psychological contract. This is more of a stuff that says, like, I'm going to do my bit for you, and you're going to do your bit for me. And that's like a social contract. That's how society should work, right? That's how good society works. Okay, but we don't have to write stuff down, because that's just how humans are supposed to be. I'll wash your back, you wash mine. I don't know where I heard it the other day. I was watching some show, and somebody came and asked somebody for a favor. And the one guy said, sorry, but my back's still dirty. And she was like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, if you want me to wash your back, then you better start washing mine. And I thought it was the most disgusting thing I'd ever heard. But I suppose that's what we talk about, right? We talk about, I wash your back, you wash mine. Yes, Cassandra. Cassandra? Your hand is up. Do you have a question? If you're talking, I can't hear you. So maybe you not have a question anymore. Okay. Okay. So what is this? What is this picture? What does it actually talk about? So that's the basis of the psychological contract. Okay. So the psychological contract has got a whole bunch of contextual questions, right? Contextual factors. So it's got age, gender, education, the level in the organization, the type of work that we do, the hours of work, the employment contract. Ethnicity's in there. I don't know if that really matters. Maybe it does. The tenure of the organization, income, etc. All of that, when it comes to an organization, I bring all of that with me. It does, because my culture has taught me certain things about my value of work, I suppose. And different cultures have different ways of working, but so all of that, when I come to apply for a job, okay, I come with all of that. I'm not just person A, okay. I'm person A with all of these psychological factors, with all of these individual factors, okay. And all of those individual factors make up my context, okay. So I am not going to be the same as person B, who has different individual factors. Okay. And so the way that I react to a psychological contract is going to be slightly different. The things that I need from an organization are going to be different. So a psychological contract cannot be one size fits all. I need more flexibility because I've got a special needs son and he can melt down at any time. So I need the ability to say, guys, I need to leave now. And I need the ability to be able to do that. Somebody else who doesn't have any kids doesn't necessarily need that, but they might want to work from home because they're Gen Z and they don't know that actually before COVID, people actually worked in offices. That was a real thing. Okay, so for all you Gen Zs on the call, people used to work in real offices before. That was a thing that people did. So I'm kidding. I know that you know that because you've seen it on TV. I'm joking. Okay, so all of these things, so what I get from my psychological contract, what I need from the organization is going to be different, and what I can give to the organization is going to be different because of my context. Okay. The same as the organization. What the organization can give me is going to be different, and what it needs from me is going to be different, because of its sector, its size, its ownership, its business strategy, its union recognition, All of those things are part of the organization's context. So I have somebody that's been working for me. She started on the 9th of September. She worked for another organization that was a much bigger organization than mine. She worked for another organization, and she was working she only did RR in that company. She only did RR. She worked there for 4 years. In the 3 months that she's been working, and when she came to me, she said, I did disciplinaries, I did CCMA at it. In the 3 months that she's been working for me, she's actually been to the CCMA, done CCMA, managed arbitration. She did an arbitration today. She ran an arbitration. She's chaired disciplinary hearings. She's represented companies in disciplinary hearings. And she said, do you know, I never did that at the company I was at. And I said to her, what do you mean? You said that you were working in our department. She said, yeah, but we only did little bits of little things in our department. And so the things that company could offer her, very different things that I can offer her. So I can't offer her the job security that she could get at that company. I can't offer her medical aid and provident funds and all of those things. But the growth that she's had in 4 months compared to 4 years are completely different. So the organizational context is also very different. Okay, so that's the contextual background. Then policies and practices. So what is the policies and practices that make up part of our psychological contract? Okay, so there's HR policies and practices, there's direct participation in all of these, there's employment relations, and then there's the culture and the climates of an organization that make up the psychological contract. So what does everyone do here? What do the policies say that we were supposed to do here? How do I react to what we're supposed to do? Are we supposed to stay after 5 and have drinks? Are we supposed to work on weekends? Are we supposed to come in jeans on a Friday? Like, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to take control of our own learning? What are we supposed to do here? Okay. Then there's reciprocal promises and obligations. So, like you said that if I worked overtime, I was going to get overtime, but now I don't seem to be getting it. You said that if I gave my all, I'd grow here quickly. It's been 3 years and I haven't grown yet. Like, has it been reciprocal? Has it been actually reciprocal? So reciprocal means I gave and got back. Okay. Or you gave me and I gave you back. That's what reciprocal means. And then there's the states of the contract. Okay, so there's the states of the contract. So we delivered the deal, there was fairness, and that led to trust. So, and I shared a video of Brene Brown about marbles and how trust isn't necessarily built up with the big things. Trust and in organizations, by managers, everything. It's not necessarily shared by the big things. Okay. It's not necessarily you promised a bonus and you gave me a bonus. It's shared by the small things, like allowing me to take leave when I said I could take leave. It's about letting me go at 3:30 when I need to go sort something out. It's about me as an employee saying I'm going to get that to you by the end of the day and then getting it to you by the end of the day, even if it means I need to work a little bit later to get it done. It's those tiny little things, and she's got a jar of marbles, and she says, those tiny little things, like every time you do a small little thing like that, you drop a marble into the jar, you drop a marble into the jar. And when someone needs something, they're going to go to their friends or to the people that have full jars of marbles. Full jars of, yes, I said it right. Okay, so building trust is one little marble at a time. It's staying late when something needs to get done. It's finishing a job that needs to get done. It's solving a problem quickly. It's being available when you need to be available. It's all of those things that help you fulfill your end of the psychological contract. And it's the company doing those little things as well. It's your manager phoning you when you're not feeling well. It's your manager checking in on you when your child is sick. It's your manager letting you go to prize giving. How many of us, especially in the Wits Plus or the adults in the full-time classes, have prize givings and plays and concerts and all of that coming up in this November? So manager giving you time off to go to that without making you take leave. But those little things that drop marbles into your jar. And that's how we build trust. And what comes out of all of those things, out of our individual context, out of the policies, out of those reciprocal promises, out of the states of the contract, is my attitude. Okay? Is my attitude. So then I will be committed to the organization. I'll feel work satisfaction. I'll have work-life balance, I'll have job security, I'll have motivation, I'll have less stress. And because of all of that, you'll see in the organization, you'll see high attendance, you'll see low turnover, you'll see great job performance. I don't know what OCB stands for. I'll have to look that up. I can't remember ever reading that, and I've seen things so many times. Okay, so you'll see all of those things. Does the psychological contract and the components of the psychological contracts and this diagram make sense to you? Are there any questions about this particular diagram and understanding how this diagram fits in with those three parts of the state, the employer, and the employee? Okay, any questions on that? Sure, guys, we have gone through a lot of stuff. It's 6:30. Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 7:22. I need some water because I've done nothing but talk for the last hour. So let's come back at 7:22. And we will we'll carry on with collective bargaining and that sort of stuff. Okay, but we've covered a lot of material, so I really hope this is making sense for you guys.
yakho lapha ehlasini sikhulume kuyo. Yezwa yini? Vula i-mic yakho. Awe.
Hey, right. Hey, right, I hope everyone's back. Okay, so the very first thing that we did, and if you're not back, tap, I thought it said 22. Okay, the very first thing that we did in terms of theory when we started talking about industrial relations was looking at the theories of employee relations. Okay, so what are the theories of employee relations? You then spoke about these in your essay. For those of you who are looking at the slides on Ulwazi, this slide is not in Ulwazi. I added the slide today. I just sometimes prefer a visual way of looking at things, and so I actually found this on the internet and stuck it in. So I don't even have a reference for it. I'll have to find a reference for it. But I just like the way that it shows the unitarist view on the right and the radical view on the left, because that is that's kind of how we want to think of it. Okay. And it's made the unitarist blue and the radical red, because so if you close your eyes and you think about it, I want you to think about from a radical perspective who wears red in our country, and from a unitarist perspective, if we were going to say who were the most capitalist party in our country who wears blue, they're probably not supposed to be the most capitalist party in our country, but that's where they've ended up. So I'm not going to talk politics in this meeting today, but just to help you think about this. If you remember this picture, the radical left is red. The guys who want unions, who consider the rights of the worker, who believe that conflict is an inevitable outcome of capitalist social relations, because they believe that the worker and the employer will always be at odds with each other. And the unitarist view is that organizations must be one big happy family. Conflict is the result of some third party coming, like a union, coming in and fighting with us. and these agitators must be prevented. We must kick them out. Okay. And so it's almost as if the radical view is pro-worker and the unitarist view is anti-worker. And then in the middle, there's an interactionist view where we say actually conflict is necessary. Actually, neither of those views is correct. Actually, we need an organization where conflict is necessary, but it's not inevitable, but it's necessary. We need to have conflict in order to bring an organization together so that we can, because actually we are working towards the same goal. Without an organization, employers don't have work. But without workers, employers don't have an organization. So we need each other. But how do we get to that same goal without one party taking advantage of the other party, without one party leveraging off the other party unfairly? And so we want to maximize the happiness of employees, the satisfaction, security of employees, but also maximize profit for the employer. And so we want to make sure that any conflict that we have is legitimate, and that's the pluralist view in the middle. Okay, so for me, this picture kind of sums it up much nicer than just having it written down in paragraphs. Okay, so unitarist is capitalist. It's almost dictatorship. It says that there will not be conflict. I will not allow conflict in this organization because I will not hear conflict. We all have the right way to make things happen. This is the way. I almost said this is the way the truth is alive. That is not what I meant. That guy was not, he was the opposite of a unitarist. I thought so anyway. Like, I kind of like that guy. The guy who said this is the way the truth lies. He's one of my favorite guys. But people in unitarist view are, this is the way, this is how we do it, this is the only way, and it almost becomes like cult-like. So that's a unitarist way of viewing things. It's very like anybody who tries to cause dissension with us, anyone who tries to create conflict is bad, and it's a result of a third party coming to try and come into us. Radical, on the other hand, this is where there's always going to be conflict between worker and management. We assume we're going to be at odds with each other. Conflict is inevitable because workers will always assume that management is trying to take the piss, for lack of a better word, but trying to take advantage of them, and management is likely then going to be pushed to do that because workers will only give what they're required to give. This is a highly unionized environment. But in the middle, we have a way that works together. We understand the conflict. Everybody understand this employee relations theory? I hope so, because you've used it in your essays. So I would imagine that you understand these three terms. Anybody have any questions about this and the way I've explained it today? Yes. Who's got their hand up? Yeah. Oh, that just wasn't a hand up. It was a like, yes, I get it. Okay, cool. Anybody got any questions? So those of you who don't know me will notice that I sometimes say things that are a little bit off color, but I hope that when I say those things, it helps you remember the stuff. Okay, so if you get offended, just shout at me rather than like going back and telling Enid or one of the other lecturers that I said something dodgy. Rather just shout at me now, then it's easier. Then I can apologize now. Okay. Right. Okay, organizational practices. I'm going to go through dismissal to these organizational practices relatively quickly. Okay, so disciplinary processes. So in general, for any kinds of disciplinary processes, there will always be some kind of process and policy in the organization. There will be standards of conduct, so rules and norms within any organization. Most organizations have something called a code of conduct or a disciplinary code, in which they will say these are the 5 or 6, 10, 20 different types of things that a person can do wrong. And if you do this, these are the consequences. If you do this, these are the consequences. There is an assumption that if a person does something, they have to get a first written warning, second written warning, third written warning before they can get dismissed. That's not necessarily true. A company's disciplinary code will decide on the seriousness of an event. Okay, so breaking a health and safety rule in a warehouse or in a workshop is very serious. And so breaking a health and safety rule in a warehouse could lead to final written warning and then a disciplinary hearing, whereas breaking a health and safety rule in an office environment might be a first written warning, for example. Whereas, so there's certain things depending on your environment. Theft, for example, does not necessarily need a first warning, second. Theft can end up in summary dismissal. So theft will go straight into a disciplinary hearing. Just because we say something is summary dismissal doesn't mean that it doesn't need a hearing. You will always have to have a hearing first. So even if you catch somebody red-handed with their hand in the cookie jar, stealing a cookie, you still have to have a hearing for that person. Okay. And that person can still sit there and say, I didn't steal the cookie. And you just have to believe them. Okay. I had a hearing like that today. The guy was literally away from his workstation for 5 hours and said he didn't do it. And then he said nobody phoned him. And then his manager showed a picture of his screen, showed a screenshot where he tried to phone the guy 8 times. And he said, so people will still have hearings. They still have a right to their hearings. Okay. So those are disciplinary processes. So you still have to have a hearing. Okay. You can go through and look what these different hearings are, but always know that there has to be a legal process. It has to cover the disciplinary code. There is a difference between performance and misconduct. A misconduct is something that a person like almost can choose to do. So they willfully do something wrong, or they have intentionally done, or they have been, maybe it wasn't intentional, but they have been careless enough to have done it. Okay. That is misconduct. So my conduct has been poor, and so I can go into a disciplinary hearing and be punished for this, or I can get a warning for that behavior. Always remember that a warning is not necessarily a punishment, but it's exactly that, just a warning to say, hey, be careful. I noticed that you're misbehaving. Just be careful. That's it's part of a teaching process. It's a learning process. Okay. So no kind of discipline is actually punishment. Discipline means to teach. The word discipline means to teach. If we think about it, that guy that I was speaking about earlier, the guy who said he's the way, the truth, and the light, his 12 friends were his disciples. Okay, so Jesus' 12 friends were his disciples, and they called him teacher. So the word discipline, disciple, means to teach. Okay, so they were his learners. His disciples were his learners. So the word discipline means to teach. So it's not necessarily about punishments. It's about teaching. So anytime you go into a disciplinary process, remember that your goal is always to teach, to correct behavior, to rehabilitate. That's always your goal in a disciplinary process. Okay, so that's misconduct. So misconduct says I did something wrong. That thing that I did wrong can be found in the disciplinary code, and there's a sanction that can be attached to that. Okay, and there will be some process that will follow for me to be given that sanction. Okay. Then there's performance, and performance is slightly different to discipline. Performance says, I'm trying, but I'm not getting it right. So my sales figures are that I have to sell 10 widgets a month, but every month, no matter how hard I try, I only get to sell 7 or 8 or 6. And so I sit with my manager, and my manager says, okay, what are you doing wrong? Let's understand what's happening. I cannot be given a warning for poor performance. So we shouldn't give someone a warning to say, poor performance in that you haven't reached target. That doesn't happen. Okay. When companies do that, they're doing the wrong thing. What should happen is I should start a performance management process. Okay. That should be recorded. Then after 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks of constant monitoring, okay, then And in that monitoring, trying to change behavior. So understanding what's standing in your way. Okay, you haven't been trained. Let me train you. Right, go back. Okay, what's standing in your way now? Oh, your phone's broken. Let me give you a new phone. Okay, now what's happening? That kind of changing, trying to fix. Let me sit with you and listen to you make a call. Okay, you're doing it wrong. Let me show you how to make that call. After 6 to 12 weeks of that kind of, depending on how long your performance management is in your organization, after 6 to 12 weeks of doing that, then the employee still hasn't started to reach their targets of selling 10 widgets, then we can put someone in what we call an incapacity hearing. And we say, this person actually does not have the capacity to do this job. We've tried. We've tried everything to try and get them to sell 10 widgets a month. Everybody else can sell 10 widgets a month, so it's not impossible to sell 10 widgets. This person just can't do it. And then we put them in an incapacity hearing. So that's not punishment. That's not misconduct. That's not discipline. That's performance. And the two processes are separate. Okay. So we can't ever have a disciplinary hearing where I've got misconduct in that you stole and poor performance in that you performing poorly. We can't mix those two processes. Okay. Never mix performance and misconduct. You can use the poor performance as an aggravating factor to say, he's doing this and this and this. And then later on, we talk about the fact that these are a performance management process. But you can't ever have the charges for poor performance and misconduct together. Okay. So those are the two big things. There is retrenchment and illness incapacity, but we don't need to talk about those right now. You can read up about them and you'll be fine. Any questions about misconduct or performance? I'm happy for you to just read over these and understand them, and make sure you can kind of understand the process. Okay? And be able to talk through the process should something like that become necessary. Okay? The same with the grievance process. I'm happy for you to be able to understand what a grievance process is and when you'd be able to use it. So if, for example, you had to talk about, say, something that happened in an organization, and you had to then reference some of the processes in an organization that you could use, some of these internal processes are the ones that you could be talking about. So you would reference some of the internal processes in an organization, like discipline procedures or grievance procedures. And these are the formal processes and procedures that you'd need to be using in an instance, like in a case study in an organization. And if you were asked, like, are there processes or procedures that you could use to help you in this process, what would you reference? These are some of the things that you could think about. Performance management processes, discipline processes, grievance procedures. These are the ones I want you to think about if you asked a question like that. Am I making sense, or am I just talking very vaguely, too vaguely? Am I talking too vaguely? Okay, I'm taking your silence as acquiescence. Okay. So a grievance process, this is really one where it's almost like the opposite of a disciplinary process. So a disciplinary process, the company has a grievance against an employee. The employee has done something wrong. A grievance process is almost the opposite of that. The employee is able to bring a grievance against either another employee or even his manager. And then the first thing that he needs to do is first go to his manager, or to his HR if the manager is the problem, and say, listen, this is what's happened. It's a problem here. Different companies have different steps and different processes, but the one that's written here is the general process. Okay, so first I go and say, listen, so this is what's happening. So and so is doing this, causing me a bit of issues. And generally within 24 to 48 hours, somebody will come back to you with, okay, this is what we need to do. And they'll write it down in writing. Then we'll bring everyone together. We'll have a discussion. There'll be some kind of formal hearing. Maybe a formal independent grievance committee will be convened, depending on how serious it is. And then there'll be some kind of minutes, etc. If it's still not resolved, it can go through to the CCMA. But generally, we try and resolve these processes as informally as possible first. Okay. We always try and solve processes. As HR, it's always our job to try and solve processes as informally with as little conflicts as possible first, and then we go formal. So it's like those knives and forks at a fancy restaurant. We always try and go like from the outside in. Okay, so like how can I make this as simple as possible? And then I'll only go to the big meal, which is the CCMA last. Okay, so first I'm going to just try with the salad forks. Can we just have a quick discussion? Okay, that's not going to work. All right, let's go with the fish forks. Okay, now we're going to have a grievance procedure and try and mediate this. Okay, that's not working. All right, we're going to have to get an external labor consultant. Let's go with the steak and knife and fork. Okay, that's not working. All right, now we're going to have to go with the big guns, and I don't know what comes off the steak. I'm not rich enough to go to those fancy restaurants, but you get my drift, right? Okay, so we always try and make it as simple and informal as possible first, and then we go. Okay, everyone understand grievance procedures and disciplinary procedures. I mean, they are much more complex than this. There's much more to know, but all I need you to understand for now is basically that there is a process and this is how they work. Are you guys happy with how much we've gone through today and the stuff that we've gone through today? Any questions? Yeah. Devani?
No, I'm sorry. I made a
You have thumbs
mistake.
up then. No, that's
Yes.
fine. Mistakes are fine. Okay. All right. This talks about selection and fairness in selection, okay, which is another another process. We've kind of spoken about a lot of this already, so I don't want to talk about this too much. It's not super important for us to understand, but make sure that if there are any questions about selection, that you do talk about the justice rules that would apply to selection. Okay, make sure that you do talk through selection. We've kind of spoken about this when we spoke about the psychological contract. So I'm not too concerned about this, but just make sure that when you are talking about selection, that you're looking at. Well, actually, let's talk about it quickly because there's some important stuff here. That when we are talking about selection, that we are looking at procedural justice. Yeah, Siyabonga, is your hand up or you got a question?
Hi, ma'am. How are you?
Fine, yeah.
Quick question. Will this session be uploaded on Ulwazi? Because I'm having a hard time with my Wi-Fi. It keeps going on and off.
I'm not sure if, yeah, so what I'll do is I will load it on YouTube and then I'll put the link to the YouTube link on Ulwazi.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Cool. No worries. Okay. So when we're talking about selection, always just remember your justice rules, which you know already. Okay. So was the procedure for selection fair? Okay. So so were the procedural justice rules fair? What were the formal characteristics of the person that I was looking at? Guys, if you understand justice, you can apply it to anything, right? So you understand justice. We've spoken about justice. So now you've got to think, was the procedure fair? When I gave the explanation, so when I did the interpersonal justice bit here, when I gave the feedback, was I honest? Was I kind? Was I how did I give the feedback? Okay. What is the interpersonal treatment of the human resource personnel? This is such an old document. I need to change these documents. I've just used old slides. But so when you think about all of these things like selection and all of that, I want you to think about the stuff you already know. Like I'm not going to go through justice and how it applies to selection, justice and how it applies to discipline, justice and like you guys are in third year. Like come on, you know how this works. So if you understand justice, you can understand how it applies to each of these things, and you're going to work out like it's common sense. If everything was fair, then we'll have good decision making. If everything isn't fair, we're going to have poor decision making. If everything is fair, then we'll have people coming into organizations feeling like they were fairly selected. People will accept those people into the organization. People will accept them in their jobs. They'll give them credence. They'll trust them. But if the process isn't fair, that person will be treated unfairly, even though it's not that person's fault. Yeah. And Devani again. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, would there be any questions that were similar to like the assignment that require like application, case study kind of. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's pretty much how the questions are. And that's why I'm saying, like, there's not going to be any questions that say, tell me what the 4 types of justice are. But you need to be able to say, like, that's why if you understand all the theories that we're going through tonight, you'll be able to get to the exam and say, okay, I got this. Okay. Right. So those are the processes, the main process in organization. If we look at the main processes, we're looking at performance management, discipline, and selection processes. Those are the main processes. Okay. We're almost done. Let's talk a little bit about collective bargaining and what are some of the main challenges of collective bargaining. Okay, everybody happy about where we are so far before we move on to collective bargaining? Any questions about anything we've done tonight so far? Psychological contracts, anything about anything we've done so far, or can we move on? Don't be scared to ask questions. Everyone understand discipline, everyone understand grievance, everyone understand selection, everyone understand performance. Okay, cool. All right, so collective bargaining. So remember, collective bargaining is slightly different to negotiation between 2 individuals. And the role of collective bargaining is changing and is becoming kind of less needed almost in certain organizations. So like I said to my class last week, in a country like South Africa, where there is still a very high Gini coefficient, and so if you don't know what that word means, the Gini coefficient is really the difference between the rich and the poor. Gini, G-I-N-I. Coefficients is just coefficient, and you know that word from stats or from RDA. So it's just the difference between the rich and the poor. Okay, so while we have such a large Gini coefficients in South Africa, we have one of the largest in the world, and our country remains so unstable, the need for unions and collective bargaining and a voice for the voiceless will remain necessary. Okay, until we become a more developed country where that difference becomes smaller, where our working class becomes more educated and has more of a voice, and our rich become less rich. And so that gap between the rich and the poor becomes smaller, we will always have a need. Okay, we will always have that need for a voice for the voiceless. And so that's the point of collective bargaining. We don't have necessarily collective bargaining there's no MIBCO or MERBC for actuaries and accountants because they don't need a voice. Okay, they can speak for themselves. There's no HR union because we can speak for ourselves. Okay, the reason why there are bargaining councils for the motor industry, MIBCO, the metal industries, MERBC, or the hospitality unions, etc., is because the bulk of the labor, the bulk of the workers in those industries are people who don't necessarily have a voice. Okay. Historically, those industries, the mining industry, the motor industry, etc., are owned by, I'm going to say it, old white bosses and employed by its very top deck, right? So hundreds of laborers who are not well educated and rich white guys who are going to take the mickey out of everyone who works underneath them. And so, and while maybe the color is changing, the sentiment remains the same. And so we need to make sure that these people are protected. And that's the purpose of bargaining councils. Okay, the purpose of bargaining councils is to ensure that these people are protected, that they have a voice. It also actually makes it easier for these guys who are at the top because they no longer have to negotiate one-on-one with guys about salaries, etc., because there's a conformity across the industry. So now I'm engineer type 1. Okay, an engineer type 1, fitter and turner, whatever, fitter and turner level 1 earn so much an hour. And whether I work at engineering company A or engineering company B or engineering company C, fitter and turner type 1 earns so much an hour, and that's what I earn. Maybe I can earn 5 Rand more an hour here or 4 Rand more an hour, 4 Rand less an hour there, but I'm pretty much within that range. And so it prevents this idea of people who poaching staff and higher negotiations and having different people on different levels or on the same level earning different money. And it's one of the main industries why it's one of the main reasons why people within industrial places don't have a huge gender pay gap, because if you're an engineer type 1, whether you're male, female, black, white, pink, blue, that's what you earn. So there's no gender and race pay gap within these industrial industries, and there's and everything is kind of structured. Okay. So and what we have is we have a union or a collection or a bargaining council that bargains on behalf of an industry. Okay, it's an institutionalized structure. There will mostly be a partner, an equal employers organization, an employers council that will argue on behalf of the employers. And then those two councils will come together and they will negotiate. These guys will negotiate on behalf of the employers. These guys will negotiate on behalf of the employees. And those two councils will come back and explain to people what the arguments are. Okay. So it's institutionalized. They create conformity. It promotes employee participation because there will be shop stewards, etc. That will ask people what they want to earn, etc. It enhances democracy. It means there's some kind of economic development because it means that employees have a say in what they're earning, etc. Okay. Some of the challenges that happen with bargaining council. So this slide is called collective bargaining challenges, but it doesn't really talk about that. Some of the challenges is that there may be a company that has a culture that would have signed off on a 6% increase, for example, on day one, but everybody else in the organizations in the employers organization is fighting against the 6%, and so we end up with strikes and all of that. And if you're part of the bargaining council, you have to then form part of that, and so the decision of the whole has to be the decision of the one. And so there are some of those challenges that then do exist. Okay, any questions or comments about bargaining councils? I would encourage you to, yeah, somebody's got a hand up. Levani, yeah?
I wanted to ask, would we ever have to answer a question that talks about like the difference between the purpose or like the intent of the collective bargaining councils and unions, or would we have to talk about how they could potentially work together and what like different roles more or less that they play? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, you are. So their roles are relatively similar. Their roles are relatively similar. The one thing I would imagine is that unions are slightly more politicized, but that's not a bad question to go and read up a little bit about. I do want to encourage you to read up a little bit about bargaining councils, and some key decisions that they've influenced in the last 3 or 4 years. Just have a read up, guys, on. So when I say read up on stuff that's happened in the last 3 or 4 years, make sure you know changes in the labor law. Make sure that you know about key things that have happened within employee relations in the last 3 or 4 years, and then from a collective bargaining state. Like, I think that is a good thing to read about. I would read about that before Tuesday. Read about collective bargaining. Read about what it means. Just read some articles on collective bargaining. Make sure that you're well versed in what collective bargaining is, why it's important. and how it could affect and why it's good or why it's not good in our country. Have some opinions on collective bargaining.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, not only Lubani, all of you. Okay, then we are almost done. Okay, because you've already done the psychological contracts. Okay, so then, okay, I want to talk about power. Okay, bargaining council. Any questions on bargaining council? Okay, so while we're talking about bargaining councils, I want to talk about maybe how the people within unions and bargaining councils use power, and then not necessarily only within bargaining councils and unions, but also within businesses. So what are some of the sources of power and how are they used within employee relations? So we know that there are 7 sources of power. Okay, we know that there's expert power. So that's the power I get from being an expert, from just having knowledge. So the fact that I have 100 people, okay, now 85, so 15 of you dropped off. Clearly I got boring, or as soon as I said it was recorded, people dropped off. But I had, for the better part of 2 hours, I've had 100 people listening to me, and just being quiet. That's the power I have because I'm an expert. At least you think I am, because I'm lecturing you. Okay, but that's my expert power, right? So people will listen to me because I'm an expert. Okay, so that's what expert power is. So people will listen to me, people give me credence of what I say because I'm an expert. Often people will come and ask me a question in the office. I'm a consultant. People will phone me and ask me a question because I know this stuff. They're not going to ask me a question about tax. Okay, they're not going to say, Janine, what's your view on this? How should we pay this tax? They're not going to ask me a question because I don't know that stuff, but they are going to ask me a question about labor. 100%, because I should know. Okay. Then legitimate power, that's the power you get by being given a legitimate position of leadership. So that's the position, that's the power you get because you are the boss. So I remember working at a company and something wasn't working, and the boss came through and he's like, I don't understand, why is it not working? And I said, well, I've been asking IT to come and fix it. And he said, what do you mean you've been asking? I said, I've phoned IT for the last week. I've phoned them every day 3 times. I've walked there. I've asked them to come fix it. I've sent emails. Like, I don't know what more I must do. He was like, oh, you people are useless. And he picked up the phone and he phoned the IT exec and he's like, this thing's not working. Can you guys come down and fix it? These people can't do their jobs. And then within 3 minutes, the IT guy was there. And then he was like, you see, how come I can phone and you can't? I'm like, because you have legitimate power and I don't. So, like, that's what legitimate power is, right? Legitimate power is the power that you get by being the CEO. Okay. Reward power. So, reward power is the power I have because I have the ability to reward you. So all of a sudden, you'll see that people for the last 2 months have been doing their jobs really well. They've been brilliant at things. They've been doing excellent work. And the reason why they've been doing that is because they know bonus time is coming up and they know that their managers are getting ready to decide on what their bonuses are. So because their managers have reward power. Okay, so that's the power to reward. Informational power. Informational power is the power of having information that no one else has. So that's like, oh, no secrets, okay? Like when you're a kid, it's like, I know something you don't know, all right? But as an organization, that's the power of knowing things that people don't necessarily know. And then how do I use that information and to make sure that I have power over other people by having that information? Okay, coercive power. Coercive power says that's exactly. So coercive power, so there's the guiding coercive power is the power that a mugger has over you. Okay. But it's also the power that someone has over you because they can punish you. Okay. So coercive power could be your manager. So remember, I could have a few of these sources of power. So as the CEO, I could have expert power, connection power, referent power. I could have all of these powers, right? But as a leader, coercive power says, do it, or I'm going to give you a disciplinary hearing. Okay, do it, or I'm going to give you a warning. Just get it done. Okay. Referent power. Referent power is when I use the power of referring to other people. Okay. And showing other sources. So I say, look what everyone else is doing. You could be doing that too. Okay. It's the power that is why sports stars get promotion deals. It's why as soon as Oscar shot Reva, he lost his Nike deal because all of a sudden he lost his referent power. Okay, Oscar had a lot of referent power, shot Reva, lost his referent power. Okay, because all of a sudden he wasn't an idol, he wasn't someone that people want to look up to anymore. It's why Faf can sell his underpants and everyone wants to buy Faf underpants. I don't want to buy Faf underpants, but other people want to buy Faf underpants. It's why my brother-in-law in England wants a pair of Faf underpants because Faf has referent power. Okay, that's why Sia can sell whatever. Okay, it's why we have the power that we have. All right. So that's what referent power is. It's what I use with my son all the time because he's autistic and he won't put on a jersey even when it's 3 degrees outside. So then when he won't wear a jersey, so I take a jersey to school, and as soon as we get to school, I say, look, everybody's wearing a jersey. All your friends are wearing jerseys. And then he'll put a jersey on. That's referent power. Okay. Then there's connection power. So that's the power of using your connections. So that's being able to say, listen, I can't help you, but I know someone who can. Let me speak to so-and-so at the department and I can try and get you something there. And okay, that's the power of networks. That's using not what you know, but who you know. Okay. Do we all understand the sources of power and how we can use power either to influence or to coerce what we want and how we can get what we need in an organization? Do you think you will be able to use this knowledge and apply it to a situation of conflict, a situation of a bargaining council, a situation of a retrenchment, a situation of something? Like if I had to give you a real life story in an organization, do you think you'll be able to use this kind of, be able to like draw on the sources of power to be able to use them in an organization, in a mini question? Do you think you understand them well enough? Any questions on the source of the power and how power works? Okay, either you guys are tired or you understand. Cool. So that was just a simple picture of the psychological project. Yeah, Kisha?
So what would a question like, obviously, like you said, we're in third year, you wouldn't ask us directly, like, what are the 7 forms of power? But what could power be asked in relation to maybe something like a scenario and what kind of power was used in that situation? Or I
I'm
don't
so
know.
scared to answer this question because I'm so scared to answer this question because I read the paper recently, and what if I actually do the question?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Do you know what I mean? Like it could be in
Yeah,
my
I get it, but
unconscious.
I mean, I'm just going back with the fact that you said we shouldn't study like we in grade 3, where it's like listing
Yeah, so
things or
you know, can
straightforward.
we
We should
ask
be able
list
to
the 7
apply.
sources of power? That's it. So it might be. So let me give you a question that's definitely not going to be in the paper. Um, so it'll be something like that. Like so, exactly like I just used my son there. So, so you have a child who refuses to wear his jersey. What are the types of power that you could use as a mother to make sure he wears his jersey?
Okay.
And then you could say, well, as a mother, I could use my expert power and explain to him that I know more than him, and da, da, da. I could
Mm.
also use reward power because I could say to him that if he wears his jersey, I'll give him a sweet. I could also use referent power because I could show him that all his friends are wearing a jersey. I could
Mm.
also, like, that's how you would do
Okay.
it. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Just
Okay,
applying it more to situations.
that's right.
Application more than
Okay,
anything. Thank you.
yeah, cool. Okay, and then the very last thing that we're going to talk about, this is not something that we're going to study, we're going to go through, is just, like I said, read up about the world of work and how it's changing. Okay, this is something that I really want you to read up about. I really want you to think about how the world of work has changed and how all these different things that we've spoken about, how justice, power, conflict, perceptions of justice, the theories of work, the theories of ER, all of those things, how they are still relevant and if they are still relevant in the changing way of work. And so while we spoke a lot about Guest, and Guest is in your notes, Guest is great, but Guest is from 2004. And I know that a lot of my sources will come from the late 1900s because that's when I was at varsity. 2004 is 21 years ago. So a lot has changed in the last 21 years. Specifically because of COVID, a lot has changed in the last 5 years. So what has changed in the world of work? I want you to think about things that have changed in the world of work. So I want you to think about, okay, so reading that I want you to do, or things that I want you to think about, YouTube videos I want you to watch, things I want you to expose yourself to. What has changed in the South African landscape of ER? Think about at least 2 or 3 major things that have changed in the South African landscape. So think about minimum wage changes. Think about paternity leave and how that's changed. That's a new one that's just come up. Think about the changes to the disciplinary laws that have just come up. There are others, those are just the top 3 that I can think of right now. Okay, so think about the changes to the employment equity laws that have come up. So those are 3 or 4 big changes that have happened in the employment equity, in the ER landscape that have come up. But think about others, maybe read about those, understand those, etc. Okay, other things I want you to think about is what are some of the things that collective bargaining, that's like, what are some of the things that collective bargaining has done in the world of work in the last, and in the South African landscape in the last 2 or 3 years, or 4 or 5 years, and then more globally, what have been some of the changes in the world of work in the last 5 or 6 years? So I want you to just think about those things that are kind of outside of your theory, okay? Because remember, having a degree doesn't just teach you what to think, it also teaches you how to think. And you want to be able to be part of conversations. So have that knowledge swimming around in your head and accessible when you come to your exam on Tuesday. Okay, it is 27 minutes past 7. I have 3 minutes for questions, but I will give you another 10 minutes. I'll set. But a few minutes for questions. Anything that we spoke about that you didn't understand, that you weren't sure of, that you are scared of, that you are going to pass. You'll all pass. I made the multiple choice test way too easy, so that gave you already way too many marks. The essay marks are brilliant. So you're all going to pass. I don't think you're going to need to worry about passing. Are there any questions? Yes, Inati.
I wanted to ask, with the last question being the long question, do you perhaps know how many marks that would be?
30.
30.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So the other ones would be 70s.
They're all made up. So there's one with 20, there's one with 10, there's another one with 10, there's one with 20 again, and then it comes up to 30. I can't remember. So don't take any credence from how I put these slides together. These slides were already on Ulwazi. They're the same slides I used last year. I've just added stuff to them. So don't take any credence of how I've put these slides together. The last question is not necessarily the last question on these slides. The first question is not necessarily the first question in your paper. Okay. Anything else? 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 Anything else Any other questions? Yes, Buchle.
Hi, I just wanted to know with regards to the last long question, should there be like a structure like intro, body, conclusion, or is it just paragraph style?
It depends on your personal style, and it will depend on the structure of the question. If the question requires that, yeah, you can put that in. I like to be guided through people's thoughts. So for me as a marker, that'll help. I don't know what likes, but I like to be guided through people's thoughts. But I don't think that's something that you can be dictated to. So however you prefer to write, it'll be up to you. It'll be an essay style question, so it's not necessary. It's not prescribed. Let me put it that way.
Thank you.
Cool. Anyone else? I'll take 3 more questions. Okay, no one else. Everyone good? Okay, good. Livani, yes.
I wanted to ask, based on like the, I don't want to say hints, but like the hints to study
I gave no
like,
hints. I gave no hints. Yes,
okay,
continue.
no hints, but like just the encouragement, yes, the encouragement to go over like current affairs, specifically in the things that are changing in like employment relations and like work. Yeah. I wanted to ask, would there potentially be a question that would require like an answer based on what's currently going on, based on like the encouragement to learn current affairs? Or would we just need to add it onto like another question just to increase our chances of getting more marks?
Next. I've been as encouraging as I possibly can be. Last question. Are there no Wits Plus questions? Wits Plus, you're just quiet. Are these Gen Z scaring you guys?
You've prepared us well.
Whatever. Okay, cool, guys. That's all I have. I hope this helped. You will know next Tuesday if it helped or not. Good luck. Kick ass. And yeah, that's all I have for you. Awesome. Good luck, guys. Thank you all for joining. I'm very impressed by how many people joined.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
We
much.
appreciate you,
Thanks,
Janine.
guys.
Thank you.
Will we
Cheers.
get
Thank
the
Thank
recording?
you.
Thank you, Jane.
What?
Janine,
Will,
can
will
Yes.
you
we
stay
get the
on just for
recording?
1 minute?
Yeah, is that Hayley?
Yeah.
Of course it's Hayley. Yes, Hayley. I can stay on
Sorry,
for 1
sorry,
minute.
I was Janine. Will we get the recording for this?
I can't hear who that person is, but yes, I can stay.
Oh, sorry.
Is this Florence? Are you asking me to stay?
Sorry, it's Florence. I was saying, will we get the recording for the meeting?
Yes. I'm gonna I'll have to load it onto YouTube, and then I'll put the link to the YouTube on I'll put the link to YouTube on Urwazi.
Okay, thank you.